Hey everybody, welcome to week 3, quarter 2. Today we are going to continue with our cooking lessons, cooking lesson 15, and we're going to learn all things about sautéing and caramelizing. So in your textbook I go through different things that you can sauté and caramelize, but for today's cooking lesson we're going to sauté mushrooms a la Julia Child, and we're also going to caramelize onions by Julia Child's method, because quite frankly in all my years of cooking I've never come across better technique that produces better results. So today we're going to go over to the stovetop, saute those mushrooms, and then we will come back and start our onions and caramelize those afterwards. The caramelizing takes some time, but I will tell you, and Alex is nodding her head behind the camera, when you take onions through this long, slow process, they are absolutely divine and can be used in 1,000 different ways. So join us this week and we will learn those 2 techniques and thank Julia Child in the process. So we're going to begin with sauteing mushrooms, and I'm going to use Julia Child's method because quite frankly the results are to die for. You could just snack on these. They are so rich in taste. One of the things I want to tell you about mushrooms and sauteing them is a mistake that people make is washing the mushrooms. These are little sponges, and if you get them wet they are going to steam or boil or just really get soggy and evaporate. So the way that you clean the mushrooms is to just take a paper towel and go ahead and give them a little wipe down, and then you can leave the stem, you can remove the stem by just popping it out, or you can do what I do because I can never decide what I want to do, so I remove that woody hard end off the bottom. To saute the mushrooms, you can feel free to quarter them or slice them. However it is that you need the final result to come out, they work either way. So we're going to move over to the stovetop. I'm going to show you how to quick process this is and what a wonderful result you get. So let's go saute some mushrooms. So the key to sauteing mushrooms is not to overcrowd them. So you need a heavy bottom skillet. Julia Child always talks about an enameled skillet. I don't happen to own one of those, never have. So I'm going to use my trusty skillet right here. I'm just making enough for a snack and for display. The pan has been heating and this is high heat. Sauteing literally means to jump in the pan. So you want your fat to jump, you want your food to jump in a very high heated pan. So we're going to add about, I'm going to say a tablespoon of olive oil. Make sure that I coat my entire pan. I'm going to allow that to heat for just about a minute, and you can see how instantly shimmery the olive oil got. You can't see the smoke coming off the surface, but that pan was nice and hot before I added that olive oil. And the next thing that I'm going to add is 2 tablespoons of butter. I know, I feel like Paula Deen here with the butter, but fat is flavor, fat is what satisfies you. Healthy fats balance your hormones, so please let's not fear fat if we don't have any kind of medical limitations. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add that butter to the olive oil. Now here's part of the technique with sauteing. As that fat melts, you can see that the butter's creating a foam and it's sort of bubbling to the top. So what we need is for that butter and that foam to subside a bit, and you'll see the butter slowly getting a little bit golden, a little bit nutty brown. That right there is why these mushrooms are absolutely to die for. Hopefully I'll put the butter there. I don't know if you can see that kind of just beginning in that brown butter stage. The foam is starting to break up and the bubbles are becoming tighter. So this is when I'm going to hit it with the mushrooms. Now, you don't want to overcrowd your pan because again, as with most vegetables, we're dealing with a lot of water here. So if we overcrowd the pan, all that released water starts to make these steam instead of saute. So I've got them nice and coated in the pan, and then you just move the pan or move the mushrooms around for 4 to 5 minutes. And what you're going to see is, I told you, mushrooms are sponges. So these mushrooms are going to be soaking up all of that fat. So this is not a stir fry. This is not over scorching high heat where it has to be moved constantly. But this is a saute, so high heat, and you can let it sit for a little bit to let those flavors develop and let the outside sear a bit. So you can see that liquid is starting to come back. Julia always shakes the pan, and I'm lazy, and I don't like all the noise. So now that when that's done, just gonna let them sit, saute for a few more minutes, and we are going to have beautiful sauteed mushrooms. Next up, while those finish up, we're gonna move to caramelizing onions, and then this cooking lesson will be done. So we have a heavy bottom skillet over medium-low heat, and with caramelizing, the temperature is key to the result. This olive oil has been heating for about a minute, and we're gonna add the butter and allow that to melt in as well. And you can see how gentle that heat is because that butter just didn't sizzle up and start to pop and crackle as it hit the olive oil. It's just kind of gently melting. Once that's all melted down, we'll add about 3 cups of sliced onion. Give it a good toss to make sure that it's coated completely in the fat. Hit it with a little bit of salt, and you can add a little bit of sugar at this stage. If you have a sweet onion or a Vidalia onion, you don't need to, but that's certainly up to you. If you're new at caramelizing, I would tell you to go ahead and add the sugar because it will give you a more even coating, and you'll see kind of the fruit of your labor a little bit better, so it'll be visually appealing, and it's such a small amount, really not something to stress about or worry about. Great. So that butter is nice and melted, and I'm just going to go ahead and add what seems to be a huge volume of onions. It's about 3 cups. Generally in today's market, 1 large onion, maybe 2 sort of normal sized onions. But this will cook way down and reduce in volume. Great, we got all these onions in our pan. And then, as I said, just giving them a quick toss to get them all coated in that fat. So as you can see, we've added our onions, we've given them a nice gentle stir to get them all evenly distributed in that fat and coated. Make sure that my heat is on medium-low because caramelizing is all about technique and temperature. We don't want these onions to burn at this stage. We just want to soften them and sweat them out. So I'm going to put this lid on and leave them for 20 minutes, and then we'll come back to the next stage in the process. So my onions have been softening for about 20 minutes, and so I'm going to go ahead and remove that lid, and you can see that they are just translucent, nice and soft. They've already reduced dramatically in volume, and this has all been done over medium-low heat. So we make sure that they're not burning. You can see I'm moving them all around. The heat was not high enough to do anything but soften and mellow them. Look at that mushroom from Sautéing that just snuck in there. He needs to go. So now the key to caramelizing, I said, is temperature. So we are going to raise our temperature now to medium high. If this is the first time you've ever done this, proceed with caution. Go with medium. It will take a few more minutes, but there's less likely of a chance that you will end up scorching your onions. Now this is not putting these onions to bed. This is not constant like the mushrooms and the sauteing where I had to stay with them, but this is making sure that periodically I come over to this pan and move my onions around so that they are not cooking too consistently on one side. So this whole process, coming over, stirring occasionally, is gonna take about 15 additional minutes. When this gets done, they will be a beautiful golden brown color, and they are good to go. So if suddenly you've run out of time, you need to go somewhere, you can leave that process right there and you have beautiful depth of flavor. If you want to go the extra mile, and I say why the heck not, then we will continue to cook for a longer period of time until we get to that deep caramelized stage, and those onions are absolutely to die for. Even if you're craving something sweet, I promise you this will hit the spot if you add this to a salad, to a sandwich, to the top of soup, to the top of your hummus. Whatever you're doing, this will take care of that need. So I'm going to give them a quick stir again, leave them alone for a little bit over that medium to medium high heat, and let them continue to have those sugars cook down. The last thing I'm going to tell you is at this stage, you can do two things. These are optional. I included them in the textbook. You can hit this with about a half a teaspoon of salt, which I'm going to do here just because I'm telling you that you can. And a quarter of a teaspoon of sugar. That sugar is just going to help draw out the natural sweetness and help that process along. Again, this is 3 cups of onions with a quarter of a teaspoon of sugar. So for the technique, if you don't have a super sweet onion, go ahead and do it so you get that beautiful visual feedback, which also satisfies you. So now we're gonna walk away. Okay, so as you can see, 10 more minutes to 15 more minutes over that medium-high heat, moving them a little bit more frequently so we don't get any super burned marks. It's okay if there's a little char around the edges, but we're not even quite there yet. We'd need another 5 minutes. These onions now are just absolutely beautifully caramelized. They will keep in your refrigerator in a sealed container for up to a week so that you can enjoy them. Just grab them and throw them on top of anything to heighten the flavor and depth of your meal without having to do any work. So that's it for caramelizing. Hope you enjoyed this cooking lesson. Hope I've given you some confidence in the kitchen to go and try these techniques. And please, by all means, give this a go. You will not be sorry.